Hello and welcome to another episode of Sustainability in Your Ear, the Earth911 podcast. And today we're joined by Greg Lettieri, who's the CEO of RTS, which is a remarkable on-demand waste management company. They're based in New York City. Greg, welcome to the show. Tell us, how did you think of the idea of on-demand or Uber for trash and recycling, and why did you start it in New York?
Sure. Thanks, Mitch, and thanks for having me. So the story goes back about 4.5 years now. I never thought I'd be in the waste and recycling business, and I think that's kind of an important fact to know. So currently, 4.5 years ago, I was working at Bank of America in their technology department, and my good friend for 15 years, Adam Pasquale, is 4 generations in the waste and recycling business in New York City, and at that time was working for one of the biggest independent haulers in New York as well, managing some of the largest accounts. And long story short, we were hanging out one night and he thought that the industry could do better. He thought technology could assist in the way customers were purchasing and getting their service provided to them. And I had no idea what he was speaking about at the time, but 30 days later, after a lot of crunching and understanding the business, and at one time we even actually flew his dad in, who was retired and living in Florida, to just get an additional kind of person whose whole life was in the industry, and decided to start RTS, which is Recycle Track Systems. And the essence of it was just to give the customers, and these are commercial customers, a better experience when it comes to service, understanding where your truck is, transparency into getting rid of bulk material, electronics material, hazardous waste, and doing that by partnering with independent haulers.
Now, you're doing this for restaurants and hotels. You do Citi Field, which is the Mets home stadium, hospitals. Why is business the right place to start in recycling?
It just, for me, given my background at the time and Adam's background, I think it just made sense because we were able to fix the logistics of, especially in New York City where we started and where we both live in the area, working with some prominent hotels. You mentioned Citi Field where the Mets play. We also service Barclays Center in Brooklyn, which is very famous for the boxing and the Nets basketball, Islanders, et cetera, and many, many others. And I think it was just about knowing through technology, and I can take you through what that is, but there's a couple different ways, and kind of the most important is partnering with haulers with technology tablets inside their trucks and allowing notification of arrival and tracking of the recycling material. So in particular, and a lot of people who are in this industry and know this industry, it's just unfortunate, but the way things are, a lot of the times either customers or just trucks or the way things are laid out, they end up being very mixed. And sometimes recycling material is thrown out, and sometimes food waste material is thrown out. And in New York City, in particular, with all the legislation, that's just no longer acceptable. It's no longer acceptable from a city mandate, but it's also no longer acceptable for our clients that are Fortune 100 and Fortune 500 that are willing to go the extra, yard, or I guess, and make it work. And there's, I'll take you through a little bit further, but that's really the essence of it, was giving the customers more options and more exposure to their pickups.
So the reason you would describe it as Uber of trash is that you don't actually employ the people who are doing the hauling. You coordinate their activities. Is that an accurate way of describing?
Yeah. So it's an asset light model through partnerships. So we're a licensed waste broker, which a lot of people have experience with. But the difference is that we have true partnerships with our haulers, where they have allowed us to install our technology inside their trucks and also give them a tablet solution that will help them with a route sheet, with extras, with on-demand work, and turn-by-turn directions. And that's really the differentiator, which is true partnerships. We don't work with every single hauler in the country. That is not our model. It's understanding who fits right, who is focused on food waste recycling in major cities across the Northeast, who does electronics recycling, who does trash in New York City, at hotels or Whole Foods, another prominent account of ours, from 3 o'clock in the afternoon to 7 o'clock in the evening, which is a very, very tough time to get trucks on the road.
Right.
So just really finding the right providers in the right spaces and competing against the big publicly traded companies, as well as some other big independents across the Northeast.
So when a business signs up with you, one of the things you're doing is offering LEED accredited waste audits to begin with, and training their employees both in person and with your app to be better at what they're doing. So this is a whole system or a holistic way of looking at changing your organization. When you work with RTS, you're embracing a whole set of sustainability behaviors. Tell us about the process, particularly the fact that you confirm the delivery, the responsible recycling of the materials.
Yeah, I think you've kind of got it there, which is the connection piece. So we've got a team across our multiple cities, which is New York, Philadelphia, Chicago, and DC. We're actually rolling out into Boston soon as well. But LEED accredited sustainability operations managers in these markets. So that's working with hotels on proper signage, bins in hotel rooms, common areas, working with housekeeping, doing training videos, everything from a sustainability upfront, day to day, right? A people element to it. And then what we've done is we've combined the hauling piece, which is working with really good independent providers who are excellent at running routes and running trucks, right, and notifying the customer of when those trucks arrive through our tech. And then on the kind of the third piece, which is combined in, is really providing recycling service. And now, obviously a lot of people who will listen to this understand that the recycling market is chaotic over the last 6 to 12 months.
Yep.
It's something we experience as well, but there are still customers out there that want to do what's right for the environment. We need to find outlets for that, which we have. And sometimes it's even a little bit more expensive to do it right. Mm-hmm. But I think there is a market for, corporations that want to go, I said the extra yard, which was a little bit of a joke earlier, but want to go the extra mile for better service and for more transparency into their diversion rates, and actually being able to tell their employees and their customers and their constituents that, we diverted X amount of material this month or this quarter or this year, and we can stand behind that, vetted by RTS.
Yeah, and I think that's incredibly important. The fact that you generate these waste diversion reports that help a business establish that they are behaving sustainably is something that every consumer over the course of the next 5 to 10 years is going to come to expect in the background of the products and services they buy. It's not always going to be the first thing they ask about, but I'm sure that as we become more decarbonized, that question of recycling and responsibly handling stuff is going to become more critical. In fact, just this week, there are claims in the UK that a lot of recycling reports have been misleading. So this becomes even more important as we put more pressure on recycling to do better. How much, as you look at recycling as an industry, is it changing right now? You in passing, made reference to the Chinese ban. Where are we in terms of reinventing the U.S. recycling infrastructure?
I think we're struggling. I think the market is going to correct itself. I read an article earlier today where in Long Island, New York, a town can no longer provide recycling services, right, because it just is not financially, they're not capable of doing it. There's not money in the budget for it. I think there's a tipping point. With companies like ourselves and others, you're going to see innovation. And I think that's going to you'll see a shift of a legacy industry, which is heavy service, low tech, shift into a higher tech, higher touch point, understanding where material goes. I think you're still going to have your issues of where does the material go. But I think we all know, and anybody listening to this, if the material is clean, and that's paper, cardboard, and even food waste in particular, which is kind of an oxymoron once in a while when you explain that to customers, but clean food waste, which means lacking trash contaminants, there are outlets for it. It's the issues of 20% garbage within a recycling load. And if you have those issues, then you're gonna have limited outlets to get rid of that material, and you've got Asia and other countries and continents that are pushing back on it. So, I think, like I said, innovation is key. It's key to our business. It's key to how we look at things. We actually, besides recycling, try to do a really big reuse program. So we've done everything from donating 500 dorm rooms to local shelters, to the wood of the ice skating rink at the Winter Classic NHL event at Citi Field that went into building sheds for the salt for the city of New York. We've recycled 29 rolls of synthetic snow that through a winter festival we reused that material. I think there's options out there. It's just difficult, and that's what our team kind of does. We meddle through the difficultness of how to place it, how to actually pick it up with a truck, how to get it there, how to track it. It's not perfect, by any sense, but I think for us, we're doing a really good job and proud of what we're doing.
That's great, and you're hitting the important point, which is the separation by the person who finishes using the product is the first and most important step in this process. It's got to be separated correctly, or it becomes less valuable or not valuable at all. So, when somebody signs up with RTS as a customer, let's say Citi Field, what do they go through with you? What's the experience they have?
It's night and day of what they experienced before us. So it's a fully engaged model, and we've got a really good, highly educated, enthusiastic team here. So we go above and beyond from a customer perspective. So from a stadium in particular, and we also service the Washington Nationals in D.C. and D.C. United, which is on an incredible winning streak, by the way, if you follow any soccer or European football.
Yeah, D.C. United, but not necessarily the Nats.
No, not the Nationals, but next year will be the year. But I think it's a fully engulfed experience. So everything from front of house, which is your concourse. So how do the fans know how to get rid of material? And in particular, looking at compostable products, we've worked with food and beverage providers and understanding what products are coming into the facility, and then how are those products disposed of. And I think of one, ice cream containers, which are wax-coated paper.
Yep.
Very difficult way to, there's not really much to do from a recycling on a wax-coated paper. And it's like, okay, is there alternatives? And there's really not that many alternatives except providing some souvenir plastic cups. And just kind of understanding and working with the team on, obviously the stadium is quite key to performing and the team has to perform, but how do we work behind the scenes to make sure that everything they're purchasing and how the cleaning staff is removing it and how a fan engages on how they get rid of something is working in the most efficient manner. And then more importantly, or just as equally as important, how does that material get transported to the loading dock and into the right containers, and how are those properly, the signage in the loading dock and the compactors and loose containers or totes. And then actually all of that work that we just went into, making sure that the appropriate truck picks it up and takes it to the appropriate facility. And even, if there's a cost neutral balance of recycling and trash in some of these markets as well, but making sure we went, the extra point to make sure that material went to the recycling facility, and then giving a client an actual number. And there's been times where we've picked up recycling loads and they're super contaminated and where we failed mutually, but yet we're transparent and we're like, this time it didn't work, but how do we fix it, and how do we constantly fix it? And it's an ever-growing process. It's not, you install a program and you walk away. And I think that's why you've seen some of these large clients come towards us, because we're with them, throughout the day-to-day and trying to, find things out all the time. We're always looking for new facilities, new outlets. It's not just about, we won the contract, great, we'll see you in a few years.
Well, and that's so important to understand about the technology, is it allows you to have the communication to continue to refine the process so that it improves. And too many people have just said, well, okay, we'll install something and as you say, walk away and we're done. This is a process of reinvention of the entire way we handle everything in our society, and so this is really inspiring to see. So when you think about the future of RTS, how does the company grow? Where does it grow? And what does the world look like when we get to maybe a European level of recycling?
That would be an ultimate goal, tracking every single load, every single loose container. From a compactor standpoint, obviously we're doing a pretty good job because the tonnage is there. From a loose container, depending on some of our clients, we're doing spot checks on a weekly or monthly basis. There's some markets where we can actually count, totes per actual pickup, food waste, for example. Where does RTS go? It's a question that, depending on the day and week you ask me, I'd probably have a different answer. We're growing really rapidly in the 4 markets that I mentioned already, and It's universities are moving towards us, and now customers, hospitals, sports stadiums. WeWork, the office startup company, is a client of ours.
Great.
At a pretty large scale across the country. We've actually rolled out some food waste recycling programs for them, as part of their sustainability mission, and they're not under any legislation to do that. I think it's going deeper with our haulers. We're only as successful as our hauler partnerships, so really structuring how does it make sense for the haulers in the markets that we're in, and as we expand to other markets. And I think that's really been key for us as hauler relationships, and being able to, we're great that we've got the technology and it's great that it's in the truck, but if the haulers aren't providing the service and working with us, then, we've only got a piece of it. And I think that's the key, is hauler partnerships and, making sure the customer is getting the data and the service that they need. And we really haven't had any issues over the last 4.5 years. The haulers that we work with have been incredible. And I think as long as we continue to build our partnerships and relationships with our haulers like we have today, then from a business standpoint, we're going to be very, very tough to deal with from a competition.
And that's going to create a lot of opportunity for those haulers and greater prosperity, and I think lots of good middle-class jobs in the long term. So that's fantastic to see. So people can find you at rts.com. What would you like them to know before they log in for the first time? What should they be looking for?
Yeah, we're proud of the website. I think it tries to tell the story that we're being different. And, one of the slogans we use internally here is a better waste company. Mm-hmm. And I say it all the time, and I just said it on this conversation with you, and we're not perfect, but we are going in all different directions to try to give our clients the best way to remove material in an efficient manner, especially in the major cities where we operate, right? Timely, understand the constraints of a hotel compared to a Whole Foods, compared to a WeWork, and being able to provide timely service confirmed through technology, tracking that material when appropriate to the appropriate facilities, providing training and diversion reports, online portals, a full digital experience when it comes to the waste removal process. And then we've got an iPhone and Android application, which I didn't really touch base on, which if you need a compactor pulled extra or a dumpster or open top delivered, you can order it through the app. We do electronics through there. Really anything that is being removed from a waste removal standpoint, we can handle. We try to become that one point of contact for you across one city or multiple cities and portfolios.
Well, Greg, thanks very much for joining us. This is Greg Lettieri, who's the CEO of RTS, an extraordinary Uber of trash and recycling. Thanks for joining us on the show today, Greg.
Thanks for having me.
And we'll be back with another Sustainability in Your Ear soon. This is Mitch Ratcliffe. You're listening to Earth 911.